Okay, in Romans chapter 12, Paul transitions to some really practical topics. You know, if you think about, go back and look at where we've been in Romans chapter 1 all the way through, what we just finished in chapter 11. He deals with a lot of really theological topics, and those are really important. But now he's going to talk about what all that means in a practical sense in our lives. He says in verse 1, "And so, dear brothers and sisters, I plead with you to give your bodies to God because of all that he's done for you. Let them be a living and holy sacrifice, the kind he will find acceptable. This is truly the way to worship him." And he says in verse 2, "Don't copy the behavior and customs of this world, but let God transform you into a new person by changing the way you think. And then you will learn to know God's will for you, which is good and pleasing and perfect." Now, I'll put a link below to our second lesson in Foundations, because what we teach in our resources is that the Christian life, number one, starts by trusting Jesus, but then number two, it transforms the way that you live. And this is what Paul is saying. He says, because of what God has done, right? Because of God's mercy, then you should live a life that is different. You should live a life that honors God, right? And then as we scroll down, he says, here's what that might look like. He says, just as our bodies have parts and each part has a special function, so it is with Christ's body. He's talking about the church. He says, we're many parts of one body and we all belong to each other. And so in this first section here, he's talking about how we should use our spiritual gifts in the context of the Christian community to serve one another, right? To love one another. And then he gets more specific in verse 9. He says, don't just pretend to love others, really love them. Hate what is wrong. Hold tightly to what is good. Love each other with genuine affection and take delight in honoring each other. Never be lazy, but work hard and serve the Lord enthusiastically. Rejoice in our confident hope. Be patient in trouble and keep on praying. When God's people are in need, be ready to help them. Always be eager to practice hospitality. It's almost like after 11 chapters of theological content, he just can't wait to share about this practical stuff. It's just pouring out of him as Paul explains what this means in our everyday life. Here at the bottom of chapter 12, it's a good little summary verse. He says, don't let evil conquer you, but conquer evil by doing good. Now, he's not saying that doing good is what saves you. He's already dealt with that, right, in the previous chapters. We're saved by the grace of God, by the mercy of God. But he says, but now that you've been saved, you should live a certain way and you should do good. Christians, I want you to hear this as you read this, if you're a follower of Jesus. And again, I'll give you more on this down below. I'll put some links about walking by the Spirit and how it takes more than willpower to honor God. But the basic idea is this: you can live a different kind of life now that you're a follower of Jesus. So you're ready to read Romans chapter 12. We'll see you tomorrow for chapter 13.